So guys, without no wasting your time, now former candidates, the presidential former candidates, Showere, don't come, they analyze things we need to know as the World Bank. Don't forget, the World Bank is saying that Nigeria is not good at that, like they are not good economically at all. There was a video I did the other day and I said, why they are telling us their perspective, their ideas and more, and their plans. Are they reminding the youths, because I count myself as the youths, are they reminding the youths the huge debits Nigeria is holding? And I saw a lot of big bass. I'm very happy that my work does not permit me really to focus on some things. But I saw comments that people do not understand because they are just dumb. They don't understand what it means by when you are holding. So take a look at this.
How they use their position to uplift people that look up to them. Unfortunately, in today's world, a lot of leaders put profit and power ahead of the people, betraying promises it made during campaign seasons, which in return has created some sort of distrust between the leaders and their supporters. Today on Perspectives, we will be taking a look at profits of leadership, the politics involved in such positions, and how effective leadership is a benchmark for successful corporations towards productivity and efficiency.
Indeed, an interesting report on leadership. We're heading for a very quick break, but do please stay with us because we have more coming up on Perspective. Notable presidential candidate in 2011, and he is currently a member of the Obidati Presidential Campaign Council in 2023. Also joining us is Omoyele Sowore, who is founder of the African Action Congress Party and a notable presidential candidate in 2019 and most recently in 2023. Very warm welcome, Sowore and Unwa Okobia. Unwa Okobia is joining us from the Abuja studio, and Sowore is here with us in Lagos. Sowore, let's start with you. With a population of over 200 million citizens, expected to increase to 400 million by 2050, Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, faces very significant human development challenges, currently ranking 150 out of 157 countries in the World Bank's Human Capital Index. Where did we get it wrong and what lies ahead?
Well, thank you for bringing me. And it's also great to see Chris on the screen on the other side. I think it's very interesting that the World Bank is the one expressing to the world that we are now lacking in human capital development. But what we must understand is that Nigeria was subjected to economic policies that actually degraded its capacity to produce people with capacity. And that was through the structural adjustment programs that was imposed on the military. And that was executed precisely to achieve the objective that they are now reporting on. I became an activist.
Can you tell us some of those policies?
Yes. First and foremost, in 1989, as I was arriving at the University of Lagos, the World Bank was also giving Nigeria a $120 million loan, supposedly to fix our universities. But they knew that we didn't need that loan. What we needed was a leadership that could have invested in education. But the structural adjustment program specifically targeted the number of universities. Said there were too many universities, government had no business investing in free education. But look at it. Some 30-something years later, the people that were half-trained by Nigerian universities are now being brought to the UK, Europe, and America as doctors after COVID-19 hit them. So had we had that opportunity to progress when we started free education, invested in education the way we should, had we had the opportunity to have an unbroken leadership in the civilian sector, we would not have had that break that led to the destruction of that human capital development they are reporting upon. So they are guilty. The World Bank, the IMF, they are guilty of this. They know the kind of policies that they have spread over time.
But you know, leadership changes hands, so the leadership then will be different from the leadership today. Whoever put the report together will be different from who's managing other aspects.
Because we are still dealing with structural adjustment program. The current dislocation that they imposed on Nigeria through the removal of so-called fuel subsidy It was a World Bank and IMF prescription. And the man who read it on the day of his own inauguration probably didn't even think about the fact that the moment you have 80% of your economy in the informal sector, you just can't come up one day and destroy opportunities that people have to do business and live. Because you already know the statistics of how many Nigerians are living below $1 per day. And what is $1 today is almost 950 naira to a dollar. As of 6 months ago, the naira was stronger than it is today. It has depreciated over time. So what I'm saying is that it's not as if we should blame the World Bank and the IMF all the time for, but you would link that with the kind of leadership they also promote. I'm talking about the West on the continent of Africa, the kind of characters they impose, and I think we're going to talk about this later. You know, since independence on the continent of Africa, what it did, you know, killing the real leaders of Africa who fought for independence. Some of them were killed through coups. Some of them were killed through, you know, mysterious plane, you know, crashes. And they have now also started directly, you know, killing people. And you now have reached a point where even military rule has returned to the continent of Africa. Africa is not making progress with the return of the military to power. You now find even a new generation of young Africans who are hailing military Boy Scouts, who are taking over all these African and West African countries. That's not progress. But you cannot divorce that from the history of Africa, how Africa got to where it is, and the position of these institutions, international institutions, who keep imposing upon Africans economic policies that would not allow Africa to develop, especially their position on education, their position on public welfare, housing. You know, when I came to Lagos...
So you're saying they are currently dictating Africa's status at the moment?
Look, the most powerful person internationally in Nigeria is probably the IMF country director. They can walk into your president at any time and tell him, oh, this is not going to work. Even when they say it in private and you don't listen, they call a press conference and say, we are not going to accept Nigeria's economic policy because this is not good for us. But they know what they are doing. They are preparing your country for their factories to dump whatever it is they want to dump on you. It is easier now to impose Americans' wheat on the Nigerian bread industry to make bread. But guess what? The farmers who are growing wheat in America are the most subsidized farmers in the US. So how do you compete with a farmer who is subsidized to grow wheat in America, and through the WTO, the World Trade Organization, imposes that you must take a certain tonnage of wheat into your country, whether you like it or not? That will kill your own local production of wheat, which we are capable of doing. So a lot of people don't know that some of these policies are part of the reasons why they are killing us. And that is why the West don't like African leaders who are conscious, who are brilliant, who understand the mechanics of how they manipulate our economic policies to pauperize us. They like cooking up numbers. You mentioned earlier that Nigeria is the biggest economy on the continent of Africa. I don't know how you came about that. How are we big when we don't have electricity? You understand?
Potentials.
Well, maybe potentials. But how are we big when you don't have electricity? Buoyant. You can't even electrify like half of a city. How can you be big?
Yeah.
It's not a big economy. Nigeria is the big for nothing, what Fela used to call BBC, big blind country on the continent of Africa.
With huge potential.
It has huge potential, but for you to get to that potential, you must remove the roadblocks. Leadership is a major factor in making sure that Nigeria is in charge of the destiny of Africa. The fact that we need ECOWAS to speak to Boy Scouts in Nigeria and all that shows our weakness. If Nigeria were to be the right country, in position that it ought to be on the continent of Africa, we don't need West Africa to tell our neighbors in Nigeria that they should sustain democracy.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Nwa Okobia from our Abuja studio. Nwa Okobia, how would you analyze Nigeria's current government and state of leadership in line with what Sowore just said? What updates on the judiciary matters ongoing, and do you foresee Nigeria having a seat at global leadership gatherings, including the BRICS and the upcoming G20, within the nearer future?
Let me first of all appreciate Arise TV for this incisive dialogue, if you like. Let me salute my brother there. Interestingly, we've come a long way. We were born in the same year. And our passion for a new Nigeria, a new Africa, and a new deal for our people is top-notch. But let me clearly say that as we discuss these issues, we must locate leadership in Nigeria and indeed Africa in proper perspective. Do we have leaders? And some of my friends will say, oh, at best what we have are rulers who are egocentric, who are self-centered, who are egotistic, and to whom leadership is just about me, myself, and I. I think that the way forward for Africa is first to grow leaders who are nationalistic, who are Pan-African, and who, beyond populism, care about their people and about our continent. We need Pan-Africanists who truly will determine the destiny and the fate of the African continent and indeed our people. Can Nigeria get into BRICS and perhaps occupy a seat at the United Nations Security Council? The answer is yes, but how? When? And how can we do that? And let me say simply that we must first of all grow leaders who are totally people-centered and people-centric. We must grow leaders who truly care about you and I, who truly care about our country, and who truly care about the masses of our people. Until that is done, you know, there's a popular cliche that we all grew up knowing, and that obtains even in the deepest and the most exclusive rooms where policies and global issues are discussed. Charity begins at home. How much charity do you have at home? My brother there noted something which is very germane. Do we have leaders who are able to say to the World Bank and the IMF, to this extent is yes, and to this extent is a capital no? Because every country that's come out of poverty to promise, every country that's come out of disease and despondency to greatness, every country that's come out of want to plenty, has policies that are intrinsic, traditional, and natural to it, not policies thrown on her by the World Bank, the Bretton Woods, and the IMF. And for as long as our leaders have the incumbent president